What if satellites stopped working? The hidden grid keeping the world moving. Think about this. Up above us, thousands of satellites silently orbit the Earth, powering every aspect of modern life. They help planes fly, track weather patterns, guide our navigation systems, and even stream our favorite shows. But what if, one day, they all stopped working? No satellites, no global positioning, and no sky-eye systems. Chaos would rain down on Earth, literally, and life as we know it would grind to a halt. In this video, we'll explore how satellites became the quiet engines of progress, how they work, and the frightening consequences of losing them. How did we survive before satellites existed? Humanity had to rely on far cruder systems to observe the Earth, communicate globally, or even monitor weather patterns. Think about travel. Airplanes and ships navigated by hand-drawn maps, unreliable radio signals, and in some cases celestial navigation. As a result, routes were often inefficient, slow, and susceptible to human error. Predicting the weather involved relying purely on ground-based observations such as localized cloud data and measuring temperature. Forecasting hurricanes, that was guesswork. Monitoring the planet from a large-scale perspective was simply impossible. And this extended to communication systems, which were dependent on undersea cables and terrestrial infrastructure that could be easily disrupted. Put simply, global progress was capped by our inability to monitor and connect the Earth. And this was before the world understood the full value that satellites would unleash. The story of satellites began in 1957, when the Soviet Union launched Sputnik, the first artificial satellite. This tiny sphere, not much bigger than a beach ball, transmitted beeping signals as it orbited the Earth, proving that humanity could send objects into space. Soon after, satellites became an arms race during the Cold War. Countries rushed to develop satellites for espionage, global positioning, and later, mass communication. In 1962, Telstar became the first satellite to relay live television signals across the Atlantic, marking the start of commercial satellite technology. Over time, satellites evolved from simple communication tools to the central nervous system of the global economy. Today, there are more than 5,000 operational satellites orbiting Earth, powering everything from GPS navigation and banking systems to internet connectivity and scientific research. How do satellites work? Well, satellites work by communicating with ground stations on Earth. Here's how it breaks down. Satellites orbit in space, constantly sending and receiving data via radio signals. Depending on their purpose, they're either geostationary, fixed over one spot, or in low Earth orbit, circling the planet much closer to the surface. Think of each type of satellite as a specialized worker. Communication satellites act as giant antennas, allowing phone calls, television broadcasts, and internet data to flow seamlessly across continents. GPS satellites provide precise positioning by triangulating signals to devices on Earth. Weather observation satellites monitor cloud formations and storm movements. Together, these satellites create a multi-layered infrastructure that makes the modern world possible. But all of this rests on delicate coordination, and that makes it vulnerable. So, what would happen if all satellites suddenly stopped working? Let's start with the small stuff. Buildings wouldn't have live weather updates, TV broadcasts would vanish, and GPS maps on our phones wouldn't work anymore. Inconvenient, right? But it gets worse. Air travel would become infinitely more dangerous without GPS-guided routes and real-time weather updates. Ships navigating oceans would go back to outdated methods like stars and compasses, increasing error and accidents. Millions of people worldwide would lose internet connections that rely on satellite-based services, especially those in rural areas. And then there's international communication. Companies managing banking and stock market transactions across time zones would be paralyzed, creating financial chaos. Global defense systems would lose the ability to monitor missile launches, leading to blind spots in national security. And climate monitoring? That entire sector would become ineffective, leaving humanity unable to predict droughts, hurricanes, and rising temperatures. The fallout would be nothing short of catastrophic. The truth is, satellites are far from invincible. Their most obvious threat? Space junk. More than 27,000 pieces of debris are currently floating in orbit, and a collision with even a tiny fragment could destroy a satellite. This creates a domino effect known as Kessler syndrome, where the debris itself generates more collisions, rendering orbits unusable and blanketing the Earth in technological isolation. And let's not forget about solar storms, also known as coronal mass ejections, that can knock out satellite systems by interfering with their electronics. In 1989, a solar storm interrupted power grids on Earth. And if it had occurred today, it could have wiped out satellite-dependent systems in an instant. The consequences of losing satellites force us to rethink their protection and backup systems, because they're not just tools in the sky, they're the foundation of our lives. Satellites are the hidden giants operating far above us, but they affect every single thing we do. From guiding airplanes to enabling real-time global payments, they're the unsung heroes of modern civilization. But as they float silently above Earth, they also remind us of one thing, that humanity's greatest progress is also its most fragile. Without these seemingly invincible machines, we'd find ourselves lost, literally and figuratively. What other systems do you think protect the modern world without us realizing it? Let us know in the comments and subscribe for more untold stories shaping our lives.